Blessed love and peace in Rastafari. There is too much. There is too much. These are revelations from Vesak. It is Vesak at this moment, the full moon of this month. Ooh, the hair Jew, doom, 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 whatever. Concentration on the essential. Here it is. If you want blessings in this life, tend the plants in your midst. The simple mathematics of earth. Wherever you are, whoever you are, whatever it is, if you want blessings in this life, tend the plants in your midst. Tend the plants in your midst. Plain and simple. The garden mathematics. That's life. When you do that, you learn for yourself. We learn for ourselves when we do that. It's very obvious. It's very overlooked. Every city is built upon an oasis and deteriorates the oasis into infrastructure. And then creates parks as a reminder, some semblance of connection. We know better. The plants, it's an ancient wisdom and it's an ancient truth. The relationship with plants is relationship with elements, the relationship with the nature of life in that habitat. The plants provide the wisdom of how to live in that habitat. Wherever, whoever, whatever. When we look at, yeah, Sparrow, ain't no rice right at the moment. When we look at the city grid, when we look at the plots of land, people may tend their own plot. There may be a community plot, but it is limited. It is not it's not the collective, cohesive nature of the habitat. It is an isolated experience amidst isolated experiences, and that's not the nature. And thus, it is limited. It is undone. It is insufficient. It is unsustainable. So, if you want blessings in this life, tend the plants in your midst. If you have house plants, tend to the house plants. Listen to the house plants. The plants around you, the trees, the bushes. You don't have control over what happens to those trees and bushes. The grass. How natural is the grass? We getting signs already. The streets is popping up. The sirens are popping up, so that's okay. 9:30 a.m. All of a sudden. Okay. So we'll leave it at that. Not talking about leaving, just in the past day. I hear the realest words from a Jehovah's Witness that I've ever heard from a Jehovah's Witnesses in ever. And this is after recent challenges additionally with the collective. And there's an ambiguous, ubiquitous in working with Jehovah's Witnesses. Love and peace to all Jehovah's Witnesses. Love and peace to all beings of this world and universe. There's recent static, and it gets increasingly contentious. So yesterday, as I am walking along my path on these roads of creation, there is the Jehovah's Witnesses again, and it's all over the place. It's all over the place, and the different kinfolk on many occasions, and friendly faces, and beautiful conversations often, some rather contentious conversations occasionally, and then there's not a continuity because it's oftentimes a different person, and so and there's increasing evidence of intentionality, particularly in the provocations, where the regular faces are the ones that are friendly, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, here comes a friendly face that says some unfriendly things, and then disappears, nameless. They weren't part of the regular repertoire or whatever else, but it's part of the collective experience, and so we can't address that because we don't know who that is. And so it's that type of thing. So yesterday, as we are continuing in this diplomacy, I walked by, and there are two sisters in there with a stand, and additionally, and I very just plainly communicate this: peace and blessings first. Second, plain and simple. Here it is. For what do you want to be forgiven? And so the response from the sister, beautiful sister, is she's smiling and she's laughing and she says, "Oh, many things, many things." I reply, "Like?" And she's continuing to smile. Now I can see this is the training of being polite and smiley, uncomfortable, not knowing what to say, but still keeping that pleasant veneer. And this is what the most realist thing I've heard of a Jehovah's Witness ever say, which is this: "I'm not going to tell you my secrets." And the way she says it was revelatory because it's just plain common sense. Like, come on, what you talking about? I don't know you. You want me to tell you my life? Ha ha. Revelation. Because on one hand, it makes complete sense in the conventional earthly life trod. Yo, I'm not telling you my business. I don't know you from what? What you talking about? And said it very politely, and then laughed a little bit, like, I'm not telling you all my secrets. But at the same time, that's exactly what she's soliciting people to do. When proselytizing, when going out to convert somebody into a religion, it is a solicitation. Going out and telling a person to join that life, to let go of that person's life, to let go of that person's family, if it need be, let go of that person's job, let go of that person's friends, and join that community. Let go of that person's life and join the community. Confess original sin in Christianity, but just to bear it all and be part of the community. That is part of the solicitation when telling somebody, even kindly and passive, assertively, to join into a religion. So that's what's being sold. That's what's being told. But then to refuse, like not to be open, because when we talk about spirituality, when we talk about religion, it's if it's going to be honest, it's an open book, and mutually. So if not, then it's not balanced. It's not genuine. And that her comment yesterday was plain as day, to herself. I could see as she was saying that. Like, on one hand, she knows that's, come on, but at the same time, she's like, "Oh, wait, hey, what's this business we in?" So no hate, no shade. This is the nature of the game. It's facts. So it's just a matter of being honest about it. So you're not ready to talk with me about what you've done, then why are you inviting me to what you do? And that's for Islam, that's for Buddha, that's for any Christian denomination. That's across the board. You're inviting somebody to let go of everything they have in their life, all the trappings, and then join up. But you're not willing to share what you've done, what your full path is. That's what Jesus teaches. That's the hypocrisy and the loads that are being put on people. It's actually it's enslavement. It is, again, regardless of what the religiosity is. Rastafari doesn't go out doing that, but still, whatever it is, it's going out to make slaves. And actually, that's actually what I've actually learned exactly before that conversation, as I'm at the coffee house having an orange or whatever else. And I just recognized, sitting there with the beautiful blue sky and sunshine that day, yesterday, because we got clouds today, is that life, and particularly the city, it's the KKK. It's the KKK. Everybody is about one of these things, one or another of these things, and oftentimes a combination. It's either like when you see somebody, a stranger who's approaching you, it's one of three things: kill, annihilate that person; capture, alternative spelling of capture; or kid, to procreate, to marry, to have children. Those are the three things in the city, in the city life, in civilization. We can call it Babylon or whatever else. Those are the three things when meeting anybody, friend. It's tenacious, but that's what it is: kill, capture, or kid. It's kind of like that three: marriage, whatever. So that's kill, marry, or do dirty. So that's the three Ks, the KKK: kill, capture, or kid. And the thing is not to be mad about that. Just understand that's the nature of civilization. That's the nature of city life. Each person has that intentionality when approaching another. Now, if it's a stranger, again, that person might seem like an enemy, and kill or capture. And the nature of the capture, the nature of the captivity, the enslavement, there's a huge variation. And many people might find it further agreeable and easier or whatever else. But it's still enslavement, whether it's religious enslavement, political enslavement, economic enslavement, whatever it is, how severe it is. And additionally, it's still enslavement. So there's that. Now, and the kid part, procreation, marriage, bringing life into this world, and additionally. So that's what everybody's about. One of those three things when interacting with each other. So the general sensibility is, well, I don't want to kill anybody. Most likely, most people, and I don't want to capture anybody. I don't want to slave anybody. That's what we tell ourselves, but we attach ourselves to machinery that's exactly doing that, and we reap the benefits of that, and we turn a blind eye to that, and then we pretend in an increasing delusion and essential psychosis away from that actuality, instead of actually letting go of those things that we don't need, minimizing our contribution and reliance upon that machinery and those atrocities, and then living an honest life. That's what we want, and it's easier said than done, but that's the honesty. Now, that's not captivating people, not enslaving people. Then we get into the kid. Well, I can only have children with so many people. Yes. However, we can contribute to the procreation of others as well. We can procreate ourselves. We do procreate ourselves. And we can contribute to the procreation of others. How do we contribute to the procreation with others without actually being one flesh with others? It is a matter of providing support, guidance, understanding in each one's own respective progression of procreation. So that might sound like, for those who see that, it might sound like just another like pretense, or how does that differ from like religions being supportive and additionally. The key factor is letting go of reward. Not without giving without expectation, giving without the prospect or the actuality of return, it being done in return, just to give. That's the difference between contributing and supporting the procreation of other life in this universe, like procreation of the trees and procreation of the birds and bees and beasts, and procreation of other humanoids. Giving, not domestication, but just giving and being in harmony. And that's the distinction between supporting procreation and captivation, because captivation has the strings attached, has the devaluations, higher and lower, better and worse. So anyways, and the important thing, like I said, is not to get mad. If somebody's out trying to like run game and enslave or whatever, not to be mad at that, not to take it personal, and whatever else, just be like, okay, what does this person need? What do I need to be here? This, that, and the other. So easier said than done often, but that's a consideration. We got some things further. We're talking about the brethren, the prophet Jesus, the holy being, Son of the Most High, as all children, all creation are progeny of the Most High. So the question is, was Jesus too nice? Was Jesus too nice? And this is particularly for Christians. Was Jesus too nice? Yes or no? It's such a binary, but it's consideration. Was Jesus too nice? That's one thing. Building from that, when in John, the book of the Gospel according to St. John, near the beginning, Jesus is at a wedding with his Moor, with Mary, St. Mary. And St. Mary solicits him, tells him, commands him, give them some wine, help them out. What if Jesus said no? What if Jesus said, nah, they don't need wine? Nah, they should have thought about that before. What you talking about? Just like the maidens, the virgins at the groom's, at the wedding, waiting for the groom. If they wanted the maidens, if they wanted to have enough oil to keep their candles lit to approach into the wedding whilst they waited, should have thought of that before. So the kinfolk at the marriage, if they wanted wine to accommodate all the people, they should have thought of that before. Come on, you want me to like reveal myself now for the sake of this wedding? Who is this? Who is this? Anyways, what would have happened if Jesus said no? Because here's the thing. When later on people are going to Jesus for healing, it becomes like wine. It becomes like a quick fix, a quick high, that people just take their sip and then come back for further, because they're not changing their behavior. What does Jesus say when he first provides the healing? Do what Moshe Rabbeinu says. Make an offering to God, change your ways, and be healthy, and walk in this righteous path with me. People did not do that. Not even the apostles, fully through. And Jesus sees this, and Jesus has pity, as it says in the Gospels. And Jesus recognizes these are sheep without a shepherd. So he takes on the role of shepherd. Is Jesus too nice? Giving the people what people want immediately, without providing payment, without having to sweat for it, without have to labor for those blessings of healing. One labors for that which one loves, and one loves that for which one labors. That is Ozzie Davis quoting Spike Lee, quoting St. Paul. Bladat. Blessed memory. Well, blessed memory. Peace and blessings. Blessed memory. Was Jesus too nice? Giving things without requiring people to labor for it. What would St. Paul say about that? What was St. Paul saying about that at that moment? Not that. He wasn't even saying that. Anyways, was Jesus too nice? The people wanted healing at that moment. Oh, I'm blind. Heal me. I'm lame. Heal me. I'm deaf. I'm mute. Heal me now. I want to feel better now. Quick fix now. Sometimes when it happens, hallelujah. But Jesus knows, Jesus teaches. Why? So that the works of God may be done? Yes. Anything else? Yes. Affliction, weight, guilt, false weights, false guilt. People are looking for forgiveness. People are looking for redemption. And when people have yet to experience and accept forgiveness to make atonement, when people have yet to experience redemption, people self-afflict into the tribulations of blindness and deafness, lameness, and further demon possession, and search for healing. Jesus shares that. Is Jesus too nice? Because Jesus knows for us, any being, to experience sustainable well-being, sustainable healing, sustainable peace in this life, this requires continual atonement for the things, for the harms that we've caused. Going to people saying, you're my bad, making restitution, genuine redemption, and forgiveness. So that's what people are searching for in the long therapy fix. That's what it is. But Jesus provides the immediate fruits of what he labors for and what he saves up, the energy that he confers, that he takes from himself. Who touched me? All these crowds around you talking about who touched you. Oh no, power has gone from me. I know somebody has taken some of the energy. The woman come forward and confesses. Energy, healing, positive energy. Boom, boom, boom. Better than gold. But as material beings, there's only so much. And so when it becomes lower, it becomes ultimate. So was Jesus too nice? Did Jesus give too much? Did Jesus require too little? For those that hear, yes and no. Everything has its reason. Everything has its purpose according to the divine grace of the Most High, known by many names: Elohim, Allah, Brahman, Nirvana, Tao, Wankantanka, Ofunga, Vaheguru, Ahura Mazda, and further. So, was Jesus too nice? Yes and no. Why? Because here we go. Here's the kicker. Ultimately, and this is for, again, the devout Christians, the professing Christians. Jesus did not die for your sins. Jesus did not die for our sins. Jesus did not die for anybody's sins. Why? Jesus did not die. What? Yeah. But that's not the kicker. This is the kicker. Jesus did not die for your sins. Jesus left because of your sins. Because the followers would not listen. And Jesus recognized that, and at some point, being too nice is harmful. Jesus left because of your sins, and it's important to recognize that, because Jesus stays away because of your sins. You're waiting for a return of Messiah, Moshiach, or for the first time, or whatever. Jesus stays away because of your sins. It's not perennial forgiveness just by proclaiming the name. That's not how it works. That's how the game works. That's not how the truth works. Jesus stays away because of the lack of genuine redemption, the lack of atonement, the lack of teshuvah, the lack of amending one's ways, our ways. And thus, not ready. Just want a quick fix again. Just want some further of the nice wine, nice wine, and that filling bread of energy. That's what people want, just like the children of Bnei Israel in Bimidbar, wanting the niceties and willing to go return to enslavement, rather than face the hardships and blandness of the wilderness. So that's it, plain and simple. And it's difficult to argue against that until people actually do the labor to have the evidence accordingly. Because when we do the labor, then we see the light. What up? All right. That's pretty much it for the moment. Conversation with brethren yesterday, endeavoring to share something about the whole thing about creation, civilization, the distinction amongst ethnicities, race, imperialism, this and the other. And so the basic joint to share, first staying concentrated, respectful to life, respectful to the wombs that bring life into this universe. And with that said, when we talk about creation, talking about all the different narratives from Valhalla to Torah, Quran, east, west, north, south, all around, all the narratives of creation, it's all one. It's for us to reconcile that, to find how the puzzle parts fit together proper. And in that we study the lines, the pathways, the lineages of creation, from creation, all the different pathways, and we see the intersections, we see the alignments, we see the divergences and returns and everything else like that. And so this is studies generation after generation. These are intense, in-depth studies within each generation and continuing lineages. I guess I'm going into this other thing too now that I think about it. All right. So I wasn't planning to share all this. To be honest, I have yet to do my prayer meditation this week. So I'm dealing with that. Was at the festival, the Asian festival earlier this week. Beautiful conversations, brief conversations. That's the nature of the relationship at the moment. So advice is shared, advice is heeded, progression continues. All right, so finishing this particular consideration regarding creation and civilization, the imperialism, all the divide and conquer binaries and falsities and everything else like that. So first of all, in terms of race, rather than think about life or the world in terms of black and white, and that's a very charged trope on this land today. That's pretty much like maybe the foundational first, like when people arrive here, which side are you on, kind of thing, and then everything else kind of sorts its way around accordingly. But I mean, it's either indigenous or imperialist, and most people tend to side with the imperialist. Just to be honest, and then amongst the imperialists is a black or white, and then from black or white, there's class, there's language, which cultural group, and everything else like that. But that's pretty much it. So, um, but the thing is, everybody needs a further. There is a further paradigm, and everybody needs a further paradigm because that methodology is eroding. So, to understand the path of world civilization from creation amidst all the narratives, here's a simple trans-binary rendering. It's very simple. So first, again, rather than thinking about the world in black and white, it's a matter of thinking about the viewing, seeing, understanding the world in north and south. And this is particularly for the Western mind, but it's applicable around because the binary, the colorism is around the world as well. North and south. It's not black and white. North and south, and it's actually not even north and south. It's actually equator, civilizations around the equator, and then civilizations around the polarities, particularly the northern polarity. So that's the. It's not the binary. It's the duality. It's actually the roots and branches of world civilization. The equator and the polarities. Those are the roots and branches of world civilization. World civilization emerging from the place that is most habitable perennially, year-round. You don't need clothing. You don't need technology. You don't need tools. You don't need shelter to live in that habitat year-round. The land of the Yanomami, Guarani, as well as the land of Akabelan. The lands around the equator, where it is warm year-round. That's the roots of world civilization. And those roots branch out. Those roots grow into a trunk. That trunk is the Middle Earth, where everything intersects. I'm trying to stay off that word. Everything connects. Everything branches from that Middle Earth experience, civilization, cities, and additionally. And then the branches going out into the sky, into the universe, in addition. Those are the polarities. And particularly the polarity, the northern polarity. So those are the branches. And there's a different nature around the equator. Again, looking at the plants, looking at life, it's different than it is in the polarities. In the polarities, there's the severity of seasons. You need shelter. You need clothing. You need these things. You need tools and technology and further. So there's a different nature around the equator, and there's a different nature around the northern pole and around Antarctic, the southern pole. One's not worse or better than the other. Each one has its pluses and its minuses, and it's simply a matter of understanding the nature. For those that find it further peaceful and harmonious in the cold, blah, blah, there it is. For those who find it better peaceful and comfortable in the hot, blah, blah, there it is. In the warm, blah, blah. In the cool, blah, blah. In the rainy, blah, blah. In the dry, blah, blah. In the high, blah, blah. In the low, sea-coastal, blah, blah. In the submarinian, underneath the water, or within the water, in the seas, blah, blah. Under the ground, blah, blah. In the clouds, on the moon, on the planets, amidst the stars, blah, blah. So each one has its plus, each one has its minus. When one tries to take over the other, it may be a natural proclivity, an inclination, but it's not sustainable. It undoes itself eventually because it's different than the nature. And it's not matter saying nature rules, it just does gravity rule? You have anti-gravity boots. Does that still mean that gravity is anything different? So, all right. Blah, 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 blah. So, That's a way of understanding, recognizing, building world civilization. Roots and branches, pluses and minuses, legitimacy and fallacy within the entirety of the world civilization family tree. We are all family, whether you like it or not. So all the narratives of creation, angels, celestials, semi-celestials, superhumans, subhumans, and additionally, that's for us to reconcile. There's evidence for and contrary to all of it. Anyway, so there's that. So I guess I'm getting into this too. And I'm just going to also provide the caveat, like I say, I don't feel like doing all this. I'm not trying to do all this. I'm actually inclined not to doing all this. But there's that thing like, oh, you need to do this, da 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 da. I've not done it for a long time, but it becomes I'll just say it and then it'll speak for itself. But I'm still trying to I'm hesitating to because I'm not trying to do this. I'm trying to think of like a reason. I'm balancing. I'm deliberating because there's a strong reason to. There's strong reason not to. I personally am not trying to do it. I'm trying to think of if there's any like strong legitimacy for me not doing it because once I do it, it is done. So, is there anything reason at the moment not to do it? There's static around here at the moment, so it's difficult to concentrate specifically to have that type of like depth of deliberation. So, without there being any further objection, here we go. These are very small. So, all right. So we're gonna have to do this. I know what we do. I know what we do. I know what we do. All right. So I'm sharing. This is picture time. Picture pages. Picture pages, picture pages, lots of fun with picture pages. Time to grab your pen and your pencil. You can play with picture pages till your day with picture pages still. The brethren has another picture page for you. Now this is not the same thing as picture pages, but it's photograph, it's show and tell. So, what I'm sharing here is an explanation of what I do. I am a spiritual teacher. My specialty, my expertise is scriptural reasoning. I've said this before. And my specific scope of scriptural reasoning is Tobadi Kokadao, Torah, Bhagavad Gita, Digha Nikaya, Dhammapada, Gospels, Quran, and Tao Te Ching. Scriptural reasoning is the act, usually it's a group of religious leaders from different communities getting together at the table and talking about a specific topic like peace or fair economics, just economics, or something like that. And then each member of their own tradition tells what that tradition says about that particular topic or that particular ethic. And it's with the intention of finding the congruence, the similarities, the common ground, so that there is cooperation, better cooperation between the communities. Then the leaders go back to their own respective communities and say, okay, we talked with this leader. This leader has credibility. They showed us the teachings, the scriptures that we can research ourselves and go verify ourselves. But we see this from that community, that it also shares this principle as a priority. And so because of this, it's beneficial for us to cooperate and somehow with this group, whether it's a co-op, whether it's treaties or whatever else it is, whether it's a peace treaty, whether it's a trade negotiation or whatever. But that's the premise of scriptural reasoning. And this endeavor is very new within world civilization. The whole prospect or the whole, well, it's actually not, it's to be honest, it's actually this stage of it is comparatively. I mean, treaties and negotiations have been going on for thousands of years, but in terms of comparative religion, and particularly within the past, oh, particularly East and West religions, Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, um, Taoism as well. But even there's been some exclusivity from concerning Taoism, and there's been political reasons for that in the past centuries. But um, that collective conversation is comparatively new. And what is definitely new is comparative religion, where people, particularly in English-speaking Western civilization, have translations of the scriptures from the East, the Bhagavad Gita, the Dhammapada, the Rig Veda, or the Vedas, the Upanishads, Kongzi, Lunyu, Mingzi, and additionally, that those texts were just in the Eastern languages further, Pali, Chinese, Sanskrit, and additionally. And 200 years ago, about 200 years ago, um, scholars, people who were not necessarily religious leaders, but just knew the language across from east to west, would go to the eastern um, locations and then translate those texts and bring them back to the West. And then in the West, at universities primarily, significantly in additional institutions, then those texts would be studied and replicated and shared. So that only started around 200 years ago. So that the whole endeavor of comparative religion, for somebody to actually like read and understand what is said in the Quran and read and understand what is said in the Upanishads, without having to know Arabic and without having to know Sanskrit, that is comparatively new. That is just within the past couple of hundred years. When particularly amidst the increased literacy amongst world civilization, which if we think about it again, that's amazing. We think of so much technology today. Literacy is because is very much a technology too, but 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, people weren't even reading. So many people were not even reading. The majority of people were not even reading. So the fact that now, today, many people are reading, and in addition to that, people have the ability to read text, ancient wisdom that comes from different civilizations. That's just within the past couple of hundred years. So, and there's people who devote themselves to that craft. Now, many of the people who do that are secular. They don't believe, they're not like practitioners of those traditions. Most people are just like, are citizens of a nation and rely upon money and this and the other as a livelihood and just work within the norms of that society. Some might be devoted to one particular religion and then just are working on behalf of that or at the behest of that religion for studying other religions. So that's kind of still the like the paradigm. People can do independent studies these days with the internet. Another big thing that makes these texts accessible, so you don't have to pay a lot of money for those books. You don't have to go to the library and get it if the library holds it. When I started doing this, the library didn't even hold these books. The biggest public library here, the one biggest public library here had many of these books, but it was still there was a lot of labor to get just to that book. All the smaller libraries in here had some here, some there, this and the other. So. I guess that's telling my age because Google was just getting started at the point 25 years ago. So, anyways, the accessibility is now huge, but at the same time, we get all the pollution, the distraction, the static that comes with that accessibility as well. So there's pluses and minuses with everything. All right, so talking about the trade, talking about the profession, talking about the vocation of scriptural reasoning. So in that exercise that I described, most of the people who participated in that, like I said, are religious leaders and very learned within their own tradition and not very learned in the other traditions. That's why they get together at the table and then have that collective discussion, take the notes, bring it back, and then continue to build. Sometimes it can be a session, like once a week or over a few times a year or a few times over a decade, because it's heavy stuff and it changes people, like particularly for people who are entrenched in their ways of being, who are very conservative, orthodox, and additionally, a little thing of truth, they have to like respect that, they have to honor that. That changes their lives, so they have to be like, well, hold up, we're not ready for this conversation yet. So for some people who don't have that kind of orthodox discipline. Oh, sure, I'll take this, and you can have that. This is because they're not actually absorbing it and like seeing how this affects the next 7 generations of beings, their progeny, the community, and additionally. So, this, that, and there, it's a lot of trade, a lot of transaction, because it's not being absorbed. But for those who live a lifestyle where it is absorbed, it's like, well, we're not ready for that at the moment. We're gonna have to hold on. Let's do one talk for this year, and then 2 years from now, let's come back. So that's what the Parliament of the World Religions is. That starts 100 years ago, 1 year after the birth of His Majesty Haile Selassie I. On 1893, in the Gregorian calendar, is when the Parliament of the Religions, World Religions, is established in Chicago, in the land of the Wyandotte and Miami and Ojibwe and further. So since that time, now that happened once, and it took another 100 years for it to happen again. In the meanwhile, there were other conferences. The International Association for Religious Freedom has its roots in that point. The World Congress of Faith. All of these were autonomous, like they weren't. They were just independently emerging within the scene of world civilization, particularly within Europe, particularly before the Second World War. And then amidst the 60s, a number of interfaith organizations start to emerge in the United States, so that by the time the centennial commemoration of the Parliament of World Religions happens, then that is reinstated, and it becomes a regularity, such that every 4 years there's a Parliament of the World Religions where religious leaders get together, have workshops on different topics, and additionally community lay people arrive, peace activists and additionally arrive, and again it's just the meeting. It's a de jure, a de facto, quasi de jure, de facto kind of parliament. So anyways, all that being said, when I begin this endeavor of my vocation of scriptural reasoning, and specifically concentrating on Tobadi Gokadao, the books that I mentioned, Torah, Bhagavad Gita, Digha Nikaya, Dhammapada, Gospels, Quran, and Tao Te Ching, I'm not, there are many people who have much further depth of understanding and knowledge, I won't say understanding, knowledge of the stories and the details and explanations about the teachings, the holy teachings within each of these traditions, within each of these texts. But at the same time, most of those people have much less of an understanding or knowledge about the teachings of any other of the other texts. So the knowledge that I share, and the knowledge that I have, and the knowledge that I share is comparatively unique, because it does have a genuine depth of understanding of the teachings and practice of the teachings too, from all of those texts that I mentioned. It's a very strict life. It's a very beautiful life. It's a life of labor and love. But anyways, it is what it is. All thanks and praise to the Most High. So I'm kind of, I won't say one man scriptural reasoning session, but that's much of what I share. So I am able to do the work of the table on my own. So when we talk about a topic of peace, I can go to the different scriptures and say what it says about peace. I can say what it says against peace, and I can say how to argue, and that's my legal background, how to argue for peace, why this teaching of peace is of greater priority than the teaching against it. So, and the examples, and additionally, according to the scriptures, according to the text, that's the knowledge that the Most High provides with me. So it takes a lot of labor. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of study. It takes a lot of pain. It takes a lot of trotting. And all thanks and praise to the Most High. But this is what I've been doing for a quarter of a century after graduating from law school. And all of that prepares me. Like my formal education, I learned, and I secluded myself, so I didn't get caught up in a lot of drama. I wasn't perfect. But at the same time, I didn't learn things that were very beneficial for who I am as a spiritual being, as an earthly being. I learned things that could give me jobs and open doors and things like that, but they didn't give a lot of knowledge. And it did give me the how to frame things, how to study, what to think about, how to process, how to organize notes and learning and studies, and when actually doing something that I actually believe in. So by the time that the scriptures are shared with me, the ones I just mentioned, Torah, Bhagavad Gita, Digha Nikaya, Dhammapada, Gospels, Quran, Tao Te Ching, and then further the Upanishads and Menka and Lunya, when that eventually arrives to me, I have the tools. I have the way to study those teachings. So that was my first 25 years. So then for the next 25 years of my life, I do that. I study, and it's tedious. It's the never-ending story, um, because the books become life, and life is explained through the books. So, um, all right. Anyways, all that being said, when I do that, I also find out other people who are doing it. It's a craft. It's a craft. It's just like old school, like being a shoemaker, or knowing how to being a carpenter, knowing how to make furniture, or knowing how to a shoemaker. How about that? Or a blacksmith. Blah blah. Knowing how to work with iron and metal. So when somebody's learning that craft, usually traditionally somebody's learning from their parents, their father, their far, but it's apprentice learning from those who did before, sitting at the feet, like we read in the Upanishads. So someone who wants to learn about the Vedas, about the Upanishads, about Dharma, goes to the Brahmin and sits, brings the food as offering, and sits at the feet of the Brahmin and says, "Okay, I'm here to study," pays respect, pays the dues, and then is shared the knowledge, and then continues on, and then it continues the lineage, and then people arrive to that person and pay respects and I won't say pay homage, but pay respects, pay the dues, study, sit at the feet, learn, and then continue on. That's how the game works. The game of truth, the way of truth on this earth. So that's what I do. I study on my own for years and years. And then when I started learning about, first didn't know anybody who did this. I was trained in corporation, so I knew how to work the corporate ladder type of thing, but didn't know anybody who was doing bridge building between religions. Wasn't very much interested in religion anyways, to be honest. So didn't have any, like, almost no clue of any organizations, any historic figures or otherwise that were believable. So, and again, Google was just getting started, so even Googling things was difficult to find. But I actually literally, to be honest, the first thing I did again went to the biggest library, public library here in the downtown Cleveland, off of Public Square, the main branch of the city public library, and I went to librarians. Librarians like still librarians, and that's no shade on librarians. They're just facts, because that's how much it's off the screen. Um, Try to look it up on the internet, didn't see too much happening, and so I literally, like, I tried to find like just a book or a directory of international organizations, anything I was doing, anything international, and I found a directory, and I would look, and would look to see if anything was talking about world or east west, or all the religions, and then I literally hand wrote, copied, like all the organizations that I could find. And there were thousands of organizations, and so I just, anyone that kind of fit the bill without knowing anything about the organization specifically, just basing off its title, off maybe an abstract that would describe it, off this directory of not handwritten, but a hardcover book. I think it's actually soft cover, but a published book writing each organization I could find. Never heard of it before in my life. Could be just all poppycock. But anyways, I did that. Then I would see if they had a website on that directory, because the internet was going on at that time. It was getting big time. Anyways, big time. I'm on my way. I'm making it. Blah. All right, that's 80s. Peter Gabriel, it is. All right, so the internet is just getting started. I looked up so when I would find the organizations, I then went, for those that had an internet website, I would go look it up, and so that kind of filtered the organizations that I was looking at. So I might be copied down hundreds of organizations, handwritten, address, phone number, and again, phone number. Well, I'm making international phone calls. That's expensive. But email address, internet access, or internet website, whatever. Writing down all that information. I didn't have a computer at that time. Didn't have a laptop. No phone. No smartphone. What's a smartphone? So wrote it all out, and then when there was an internet website, then I would look it up. Okay, is it there? Is it active? What's it doing? Da 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 da. So through that process, it was a continual filtering process, and through that, I found a number of organizations, and one of those organizations was the Parliament of the World's Religions. So that's when I found, over 25 years ago. And Now, at the meantime, whilst I'm doing all this, like I had to catch the bus. That costs money to get to the library. That's a day. I spend a day there, cause that's a bus ticket. And then come back. So I'd do that. Then when I wasn't doing, I was living in a cave, basically my family house, my family home. After I'd already been sent to the psych ward, but I go to the library, study who's doing this and this, that, and the other. And then I go and read scriptures and read, go back and study and read. And so that's what I would be doing for a number of years, actually. But with different levels of intensity amidst leaving the country periodically. Anyways, that's another story. Point being, that's when I find the Parliament of the World's Religions. So as I'm building my familiarity with the teachings of the scriptures and going through that initial that zealous nature of the neophyte, of like learning these things and just like we've got to do all this, and that puritanical kind of zealousness of the neophyte that has yet to kind of settle it into the actuality of life. I had to go through that period too. And so, we need to do this, and it says here, blah, 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 blah. So that tempers for a couple of years. Then I finally reach out to I started reaching out. I was doing all types of correspondences on blast, sending all different types of things to the permanent missions of all different nations periodically. And the thing is, it was being received because I would watch the McNeil Newsletter Hour, and I would see evidence of the things that I was writing being articulated by the pundits. So I'm like, they getting it, but they're not. And it's a side story. Anyways, it's nothing. But that's what I'll be doing. I saw the Parliament, then I connected with the Parliament. Then by the time the Parliament in Barcelona was being convened, that's 20 years ago, I get directly involved. There's an online forum. I meet much of the leadership within the Parliament, and I that's when I begin like my direct. I wasn't talking with nobody on this country, in this country, whatever, nothing. I didn't have enough patience. I was too upset to deal with anybody of this society, the United States at that time, for a long time. So I could talk with people outside around the world, and so I would connect with people in the Parliament, and that's when I began things. So all of this saying, see, this is still part of the delay and the hesitation of saying what I'm about to say. So after years of this, of study, of having the discussion, I ever actually went to a Parliament. And my whole point for saying this is that today I have that craft. I have this craft of scriptural reasoning. I've studied at the feet. I've gone and visited the people. I've engaged with the people who are in this field. To be honest, I have yet to be introduced to anybody who's doing what I do in terms of having the knowledge of the different scriptures that I do. And I'm not saying I'm not trying to up myself. I'm just saying I'm unaware of anybody else who has this repertoire. I know some people who have a secular knowledge, meaning people with brilliant minds, huge minds, are able to study and read all the scriptures that I talked about and are able to recite the teachings, but are not practicing it. So are precluded from speaking from an experiential thing. And that's significant, particularly for those who do practice it, because they see, wait, he has the knowledge, but he's not doing it. So no, we're not listening to him, because they know better. Each one in their own tradition knows better. So they're not listening to somebody proclaiming something in their own tradition that they know better of. That person might know much further about the other traditions than they do about those other traditions, but because that person is professing to know something about their own tradition and they see that the person is not practicing it, it's like that discredits anything that person says about anything else, because people already know and see that. So I'm not perfect. Well, all right. So my point there was just say that I know few people who do that. There are many people who have a knowledge. There are many people, professors. I say professors because it's just the academia situation. There are many teachers that have a knowledge about the different scriptures, who have read it, who teach comparative religious studies at university, at high schools, at middle schools, and have a secular knowledge about the teachings. But in terms of actually being professors, practitioners of these teachings, that's another story. So there are many people in the interfaith realm, religious leaders, public leaders, community leaders, government leaders, officials, and additionally, that are involved in this field, that do this work, and who convene these sessions of scriptural reasoning, who have strong relationships with clergy and leadership within the different traditions, have standing and respect amongst the different traditions, so that when they say, let's have this conference or let's do this, people say, okay, let's do it. And then something is created from that, a document, a proclamation, publicly for all the different communities accordingly. So there are people who do that. So that being said, that's what I'm saying here, is that I find who those people are in this craft of spiritual diplomacy, and that's a thing. In the craft of scriptural reasoning, I find the people who do these things in this world. And then I approach and I sit at the feet and I say, I provide my respects. And I learn and I listen. I introduce myself and I study. And then I continue on and further, because again, that's how the game works. That's apprenticeship. Seeing who does it before us, studying from the people who do it before us, acknowledging the people who do it before us, and then continuing on. And there's a point for all of this. And again, this is a lot of, oh, Woody. Excuse me. Somehow, the battery done stopped being recharged. Interesting. Blood out. All right. So, all that being said, my point is that in this craft of spiritual diplomacy and in this craft of scriptural reasoning, I find the elders, I find the teachers, and I approach the teachers. I pay my respects. I sit at the feet of the teachers, and I learn, and I join in the ranks. I am conferred with authority. Let me tell it. The truth speaks for itself, so whatever. Now, that being said, this is important, and it's not about myself. It's beyond myself, but it involves myself, and thus it's appropriate for me to divulge this or to communicate this. So here is some of the evidence of what I am articulating. So this is when I attend the Parliament of the World's Religions. And this is from the book, the autobiographic book, I Am Not Human, the illustrated selections. So the purpose. Oh, I have to see what I just did here, because all of this might just be edited for the first time ever. I'm gonna have to review this because, yeah. And if I did something that I was supposed to not do, then I'm gonna have to edit that out. And if there's a blank, that's the reason why. But otherwise, I'm just gonna continue as if I didn't do it, and then continue with what I have to say. So, this is photographs from the Parliament of the World's Religions. So, up to that point, I had not. This was 15 years ago, thereabouts, 15. And by that point in my life, I already had been in that trod for 7 years strong, 7 years strong, over 7 years strong. So the better part of a decade, I had already been in this trial of doing what I said, going to the library, studying, getting put in psych wards, going to Cuba, going to Jamaica, looking for asylum, looking for someplace outside of what was happening at the moment, but primarily studying and writing, and then reaching out, and gradually reaching out. This was the first occasion, actually. And it's one of the first occasions, I'll say that, without getting into a whole bunch of side stories. But this is one of the first occasions that I actually go to a conference and talk with people at length outside of my family for 8 years. I should say voluntarily talk with people at length for the better part, like 7-8 years. So this is the Parliament. Now, when I go there, again, I'm paying my respects to the leadership that is doing things. So I don't want to point with my left finger, but the logistics of this joint. I'm just gonna, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm gonna point with my right finger. Still recognizing I've yet to do my prayer meditation today. So that's the Parliament of World Religions. It is convened in Wurundjeri land. That's the welcoming from the native Wurundjeri peoples to the Parliament of the World Religions, otherwise known as Melbourne, Australia. These are my fellow travelers. Yo, you can see I was weighing over 300, maybe 350 pounds at that point. That was my fellow traveler who sat next to me on the plane. Oh, D. Very gracious, very patient. That's a married couple from someplace on this continent. So very, again, humble conversation as we were crossing the Pacific Ocean for hours, sharing a very small airplane seat. So that's one of the first brethren that I meet at the Parliament. Now, that is Marcus Braybrook, who is the former chair of the Congress, the World Congress of Faiths. I'm gonna sweat my brow. So the World Congress of Faiths is one of the oldest interfaith organizations, as I mentioned. It started nearly 100 years ago. It's based out of Oxford, England. And so it was established by a young husband who was a British official traveling through the East and eventually established the first, or one of the first congresses of the world's religions, based out of England. So since that point, the organization is established and continually convenes programs. And additionally, we had some strong words when I was in Denmark recently, a few years ago. So there's some healing to do in that respect. But Uncle Marcus Braybrook and Auntie Mary Braybrook, for years, tremendously gracious and generous. He's been a long time chair of the Congress of the World Congress of Faiths. He's an Anglican clergy in the Church of England, but he writes many books about world religions. One of the prominent books is Beacons of Light, which is a strong recommended reading. 100 people that change world civilization around the world. So it's an introduction to the different prominent leadership, not the military leaders or whatever, but the prominent religious leaders, scholars, saints, and additionally from around the world, from India, China, Africa, Europe, Asia, Middle East, native kinfolk. Now, it is biased just intrinsically. I mean, Uncle Marcus Braybrook is a generous man, very giving, but at the same time, we're all fraught with our own biases, and even just in terms of what we know and what we've been introduced to. So there is a certain amount. There's certain concentrations in some aspects in terms of region and culture, and some dearth in other types. But at the same time, it's an invitation for people to establish their own list and have that further conversation. So it's still a highly recommended read. So that's Brother Marcus Braybrook. I'm going to provide some highlights first. Again, my point is that these are the leadership that I know of for years before going to the Parliament, and I seek the brethren and kinfolk out and pay my respects, coordinate, communicate. Some of the brethren I already talked with for years before that, but it's not the quid pro quo kind of just crass, like paying my dues, like genuine affection and respect and appreciation for each of these kinfolk. And this is an opportunity to meet and connect officially, and then make my physical introduction after already communicating through email, particularly, and online through the online forum that the Parliament convenes for a number of years. And additionally, so I won't feel like should highlight everybody here, but Dr. Hans Kung. I'm pointing with my left hand. All the protocols. So Dr. Hans Kung, please excuse my left hand. Dr. Hans Kung is one of those. He's actually a former priest within the Catholic Church, a Swiss theologian who works with the Parliament of the World Religions, and 20 some odd years ago establishes a doctrine or establishes a document called the Declaration Towards a Global Ethic. So basically, he works with a number of religious leaders from different traditions on identifying a shared ethic, and finds four basic principles that are shared amongst the different religions in strength, which is essentially honesty, peace, sharing, and it's not said in this language, but it's essentially what it is: chastity, respect, proper respect and relationship between man and woman. So, Dr. Hans Kung is one of the heavyweights. Like I don't mean to provide like hierarchies, but these are prominent leaders within the interfaith movement that I go to. So there are a number, actually. I'll say them by name. Rabbi Rosen, Bawa Jain, Charles Gibbs, Rabbi Michael Lerner, Rabbi Alan Goshen Goldstein, the Elijah Interfaith Institute, Parliament of United Religions Initiative, World Council of Religious Leaders, United International Association for Religious Freedom, Olagna Brugnola of blessed memory, the Israeli-Palestinian Peace Team, and Brother Ahmed Salim from Hawaii with the All Believers Network. So, anyways, point here is this. In this craft of scriptural reasoning, I'm just going to say it. It needs to be said. I can be accosted for whatever ego or whatever else, accused of whatever ego. But this is what it is. In the work that I do, the vocation that I share, the vocation that I practice, I do the individual work. I study, I trod, I practice, I discipline. And I also look to the teachers, and I go to the teachers, and I provide respect to the teachers. I visit the teachers. I acknowledge the teachers. I listen to the teachers. And then I continue on. I agree in many ways with the teachers. I disagree in certain ways with the teachers. That's the nature. And I continue on in doing this work. My point for all of this is this. At this point, as I said before, I am within the ranks. I am a teacher now. And it's been I am for a number of years at this point. And so I am within the ranks of those to be visited for anybody else who continues in this trod, who continues in this vocation, particularly within scriptural reasoning. I am one of the people to visit and respect and acknowledge and listen to in this game. So, I'm a piece of shit. I walk with God. I'm no better or worse than anybody else. But I am a teacher. Legit, I'm not going to say ordained, but accredited. So, whatever. Beautiful. The point and the purpose for saying this, the priority for saying this, is that there has yet to be one who provides that respect. There has yet to be one that approaches and acknowledges what is being done. Many people see me, people who see me and don't know what I do in terms of, they just say, yo, he's doing nice things, whatever, without being on the world stage, or having a knowledge about the world stage. They just say, yo, he's doing things. So there are many people who approach me, and I'm not, it's not a hierarchy, whatever, but it is. It's a teacher-student thing, and that's legit. I learn continually, just like Kongzi and the great teachers always learn continually. We're always students, but at the same time, for those who want to learn what we've learned and to gain from what we've learned, have to acknowledge us as teachers. And on the world scene, that has yet to happen. And what is recognized amidst all my perceived foibles and everything else is basic colorism. There's the whole perceived political dissidence with the United States. I'm not a political dissident of the United States. The United States is a criminal entity, and I just call it out for what it is. That's truth. Everybody knows that. The religious leaders know that. The religious leaders don't say that because the religious leaders are very connected with that. So, but that's it. And that's not the reason that precludes people from approaching me primarily. It's the race thing. Because that's the ancient thing that is taught within the scriptures themselves, within Torah, within the Quran, within the Gospels, within the Digha Nikaya, within the Bhagavad Gita, lightweight, both for and against. So that's that challenge that seems to exist, that seems to preclude people from approaching me and providing me with acknowledgement and respect and listening to me. So whatever that, why does that mean anything? Am I looking for that acknowledgement? Oh, I need to get my respect. I want my degrees. Or nah. It's about this, for the sake of the game. Anybody who continues on, any youngsters, any 20-year-olds, any university students, any graduate students, any professors in the past 20 years at all, like, they have to acknowledge what I do. One, because I'm part of it. And two, what I'm doing is actually fantastic. It's awesome. It's actually miraculous. All thanks and praise to the Most High. And that needs to be acknowledged. If anybody's going to be any kind of semblance of genuineness in this vocation of interfaith, of scriptural reasoning, and additionally. So now we can reason about that second one, about how miraculous and how amazing the things that I do are. That's up for discussion. But at the very least, have to recognize I am in the ranks. And just as I go to each of the teachers here, the ones that I know of, and by being in the game, particularly at that point, I know who there is in this game. There's one person that's absent from that position just because the person was less available, and ironically, that person is actually a professor of the university that I graduate from. So I reached out to the brethren a while. So the brethren, there's knowledge, but still provide my respects. I actually purchased the brethren's book over 20 years ago. It's a beautiful book, actually, at that time, particularly. World Religions Today, Professor John Esposito. So, anyways, I sit at the feet of the teachers before me, and I join the ranks of the teachers before me now. And that's where I sit now. And there has yet to be a teacher, or there has yet to be a student who comes and sits at my feet and says, I see what you do. I've read what you've done, or at least some of it. I respect what you do. I want to learn from what you do. And it's not just applicable for people who have any interest in doing what I specifically do. It's applicable to all kinfolk who want to do anything in this realm, the greater realm of interfaith and scriptural reasoning, and all of that. So that's the nature of the game. And until people do that, there's nobody who's qualified. It's not a matter of qualification. There's nobody who has that skill to do that study, to do that work, and to provide that service to the leadership of the world, the governments, the other clergies of other traditions. And additionally, that service is not being done because people have not acquired the knowledge, because people have not provided the acknowledgement and the respect and the study. So that's the nature of it. And so thus there's like there's a stagnancy. It's like doctors are not being made right now because people refuse to acknowledge that this is the doctor that has the knowledge that is necessary at this moment. And so because people avoid that, there aren't any doctors that are being made at this moment in the field of interfaith healing and knowledge. And so the world suffers because of that. And that's my responsibility. It's not my ego. It's not my whatever. My thing is I have a wife and children. That's where I am, and it's not even mine either. That's the Most High commands. So I care less about acknowledgement and credentials of the world. I've lived 25 years without that. But at this point, I'm in the ranks, and for the sake of other people learning, that's the necessity. How often can I repeat myself? As often as necessary, as often as commanded by those with genuine authority. So, and by the one with genuine ultimate authority. So, that's the purpose of the thing. And like I said, I wasn't trying to share all that. But the concern is the refusal to acknowledge it. There's some kinfolk who've come close, and there have been some overtures of kind of like recognition, like backhanded from younger generation kinfolk, that kind of like halfway acknowledge, but it's very difficult for many kinfolk many young, particularly young men, young women too, but young men, because that's what we're talking about here primarily. And yes, there's a sexism. I won't say it's sexism. There's a discrimination. That's life. Why do you want chauvinistic authority anyways? That's bullshit. So, and I'm not speaking to the women. But there's a difficulty that many young brethren have. Teenagers, 20-somethings, 30-somethings, particularly, but even it's an interesting phenomenon amongst teenagers and particularly young 20-somethings who are very intelligent, very bravado and braggadocious or whatever, and maybe like stellar in the immediate circle or whatever, but have a difficulty recognizing that somebody else of my ilk can have something that they don't have or they have yet to attain, and that they have to actually consult with me in order to receive that, or someone of my ilk to receive that. It's like because a lot of that confidence and a lot of that ego and that swagger is established from a sense of superiority against particularly people of my ilk. So in order to acknowledge the divine presence of the Most High within people of my ilk, undermines, undoes that foundation of swagger, and it requires some reconstruction, and that's very humbling. It's very difficult. So that seems to be one of the big reasons why there has yet to be those that provide that kind of respect. And so, I mean, it continues until there's enough motivation to do that, until there's enough support from the institutions to say, oh, young student, young stellar prodigy, you're gonna have to go to them. We'll give you the stipend and da 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 da. But it's gonna have to happen because this is the way it is. So this is the public service announcement in that respect. We reach out from this side, long time, repeated time, continuing times. So at some point there has to be reach back. And there just has to be simple basic acknowledgement of not even equality, but just of merit, mutual respect. And that changes civilization, that changes society, that changes nations. Yes. It's happening one way or the other, so might as well get out in front. Anyway, that's much of what to share, some of what to share, too much of what to share. Of the blessings upon blessings, the plants in our midst, what the plants in our midst share. The static has calmed down, the winds pick up somewhat, the clouds continue to swim. Slowly, from south to north, primarily, and the swifts so much faster. Yes, without the rice at the moment, I myself have had meager provisions. Oh, poor me, poor I. I have to actually do some research about meal recommendations, recipes, ideas for cornmeal and corn flour and oat flour, because we got some of that at the moment and don't know what to do with that. So rather than continuing to chew up the rice, let's say what we can do with these other ingredients. Can we do with what we got in stock? So that's what we got going on today. It's Besak. It's a day of rest today. It's an Upasada day. It's a holy day. commemorating the birth, enlightenment, and nibbana of Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama. So perhaps this is a Dharma address, an address of Dharma. How about that? For this day, hooray, hooray. That's what I say. Anyway, stop playing. Okay, what I say. Disarray. All things in play. See what happens. Sobriety, calming down. Let them sugary words dissipate. Calmness, concentration. All thanks and praise to the Most High, Elohim. Blessed love and peace in Rastafari.